about lustration and the lustration among education workers in Donetsk region. We talked a lot about lustration in police in Donetsk and Luhansk. We were not talking about education, but we will talk on this urgent topic with Arseniy Pushkarenko, who is aide to Andriy Pavlovskiy MP, Karen Nikiforov, a assistant professor of Donetsk National University, and Arsen Stanchevsky, who is a public activist. Thank you. Dear journalists, I have to apologize on behalf of Andriy Pavlovskiy MP because he was invited to the Security Service of Ukraine on the account of the statement that we made public last Monday about people who cooperated with the Donetsk People's Republic. We published made public a list of many businessmen and officials. So the list is now in the security service and they are investigating it. Today, I will read out a list that was prepared by us during the trip to Donetsk region and the liberated cities. Recently, the Ministry of Education issued the recommendation to education workers about the grounds for dismissal, according to legislation, of those education workers who were in this or that way involved in separatist activities. So we are sending the letter to Mr. Kyiv, the minister, with the facts and surnames, so that he is able to realize his own initiative, because we think 99% of those educational workers are still in their places, in their jobs, on the eve of the Day of Knowledge, and in a couple of days they will again talk to parents and educate kids. You know how on the Day of Independence the journalists made a video about how the school children of Slovyansk who were painting the city in blue and yellow were told by their teachers how the Ukrainian state does not exist. So in spite of those facts, those people are still in their jobs. So I read out the address by Mr. Pavlovskiy to the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, Sergei Kyiv. According to the recommendation letter of the Ministry of Education, the local bodies of education, I address you, Mr. Kyiv, as an MP to immediately realize the measures in relation to those education workers who cooperated with the terrorist organization Donetsk People's Republic, who were abetting in terrorism and separatism, who were contradicting and rejecting the existence of the Ukrainian state in Donetsk and Donetsk region. With the list of those who supported Marmazova Tatiana, pro-rector of the Donetsk National University, the minister of, she is a councillor from the Party of Regions, and she is the minister of the Donetsk People's Republic. She never has hidden her pro-Russian views. She is openly in favor of federalism of Ukraine. Kyrylyuk, assistant professor of politology, chair of Donetsk National University, counselor of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, took part in a seizure of administrative buildings. He is one of the founders of the Russian Izborsk Club in Donetsk. Oleg Buntovsky, assistant professor of Donetsk National University, one of the leaders of the party Russian bloc. He writes articles saying that there's civil war in Ukraine, propagates the ideas of Novorossiya. Andriy Konovalov, senior lecturer at the National Donetsk University, who was the expert at the affiliate of Russian Izborsk Klub, who gave comments to the Russian television, where he said that Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, Mykolaiv, and Dnipropetrovsk regions are regions of the so-called Novorossiya and will follow the path of Donetsk and Luhansk region. Posrednikov, assistant professor who held sittings of the Russian Orthodox Club. Dmitro Musa, head of the chair of philosophy of the Donetsk National Technical University, the ideologue of the Donetsk People's Republic, one of the founders of the branch of the Russian Izborsk Klub, gave interviews to Russian television. Artem Olgin, who is the lecturer in history, coordinator of the movement Russian East in Donetsk. Alexander Zubarev, head of the city education department of Slovyansk, who cooperated actively with the Donetsk People's Republic, who was actively expressing his pro-Russian position in the social network Odnoklasniki, took bribes. Vyacheslav Zagoruiko, teacher of law in one of the schools of Slovyansk, city councilor from the Communist Party, was openly stating in favor of Donetsk People's Republic. Lydia Mazanova, a Methodist of the Education Center in Slovyansk, actively worked with Russian television, gave interviews to Russian television, and said that National Guards committed crimes. Stalin, Methodist. She said that there's no Ukrainian state. Irina Chernikova, Methodist of the Education Center in Slovyansk, history, the lack of the feeling of patriotism. Lainova, teacher, city councilor from the Communist Party, took part in rallies and conferences. In March, she tore apart the Ukrainian flag and collected signatures under the address to Putin. The physical culture teacher took part in different rallies, and in Olga Fominska, teacher of the Russian language and literature, school number 13, Slovyansk, propagated in the social networks. Odnoklasniki was aggressive against the pro-Ukrainian teachers and pupils, took part in the referendum preparation, and gave interviews as head of the polling station. Unfortunately, those people are still in their jobs in education establishments, getting their salary from the Ukrainian budget, and still propagated their ideas. It is inadmissible that those people are still in the educational establishments, also because of the threat to the life and health of informators. I retain the right not to inform about the source of this information, and today this address is being sent to Minister of Education, Mr. Quit, and we hope that those education workers will be dismissed from their jobs. Of course, there are nuances, because the letter from Mr. Quit was sent to heads of local departments. Let's take Mr. Zubarev, who was openly in favor of Donetsk People's Republic. There's video how this Zubarev can dismiss himself from his job. So people from Sloviansk want to help Kyiv and the Prime Minister and the President. There are signatures with the help, with a request to help. Last time we had 700 signatures. Today we have several thousand signatures, so that all those officials are re-examined and dismissed, and the adherents of Donetsk People's Republic, who were most for it, are charged criminally. So we think that they're just, but Mr. Pavlovskiy helps our ministers.
Thank you. We would like to say that that phenomena is a systemic one, but we are trying now to support the initiative of our Minister of Education and give him evidence on activities of those people who were openly supporting separatism in Donbass. People continue to be in their jobs, and they continue to dictate their position openly to children, to their parents, and we believe that's wrong. We are not for putting all of them into prison, but we are for the ministerial inspection, and if the inspection finds out that there were some direct calls, then the decision should be made on these positions. We are presenting people who we all saw on Ukrainian and Russian TV channels, those who were active at the meetings and demonstrations in Donbass supporting the so-called Donetsk People's Republic. I would like to show a videos that we have. 5 minutes to 12, there was a big explosion, and we saw there was dust everywhere. Everyone ran to the, that was in the building of the school. We understand what it was, and everyone ran away. We took people into the basement, the teachers were in the basement, the technical personnel was in the basement, and the classes were over. And the parents started coming and taking children. What were the feelings? The feeling is awful. It's awful because our army, for which we pay taxes, is killing us. And our president that has to protect peaceful citizens, he's eliminating us. They think that we are all terrorists in Slavyansk. Children were crying, sure. The teacher was crying, a small child was crying. These are children of 6. Parents came and started taking them away. It was dangerous, but nevertheless they were taking their children. Other parents stayed with us. That is Mazanova Lydia Petrovna. He's a Methodist in Slavyansk, and she teaches Ukrainian language and literature. She probably forgot about her motherland, about her specialty, and she's talking about all this violence of the Ukrainian army and personally Petro Poroshenko, and reminds that they're paying taxes. But thanks to this taxes, the city Slavyansk is liberated, and we believe this person should be sacked. At 11 o'clock at the square, the Communist Party had a meeting. We want to tell Russia, to the president, even it's Very hard to hear, sorry. Impossible to translate.
Получили угодил. Ему обращаться. Почему мы молчим и не обращаемся?
Ну, хочемо додати, що тут співпало дві проблеми.
Like to add, there are two problems here. It's not just the teacher, but he's the member of city council from the Communist Party of Ukraine. He is the teacher of law. On the 1st of September, he will come back and will be talking about Novorossiya to children, about the history of the region that was written anew. And he is for the meeting of friendship, where they will be requesting Putin to introduce troops, to bring troops. Besides history, he could teach logic, I believe. It's a Slavyansk referendum. Tonight, after 12 o'clock, there was a fighting near Andriivka, Mashmet. The railway station was involved. I don't have all the information now, but for half an hour minimum, there was a mortar shelling, that's for sure. We heard shots from the guns. In an hour, I believe I will have more detailed information about the events. I believe there were no losses. We had some wounded, 3 persons wounded. It was the vehicle turned over. But will there be a communication established today? I don't know. The communication was operating in automatic mode. And if some shell or cartridge hit it, something was broken. They don't allow us to repair. We still have several villages without electricity, Alexandrovka, Andreevka without electricity. All our attempts to somehow repair this cable lead to fail. The repair brigade is shot at. Do you believe that this military action scare people? On the 9th of May, we showed that we have a normal military spirit, and we hope that our people will vote today for Donetsk People's Republic. Thank God. How many people do you expect to come and vote? As many as possible. Because we added some transportation, we are supporting our people. I believe we will cope with that task. Thank God everything will be fine. Thank you. Again, Slavyansk referendum. We are in Slavyansk. This is the polling station for referendum. It's ready to receive the first person. Here we have 1,610 voters. We received 1,413 bulletins. We are ready to start. We open the door and we wait for the first person, first voter. Thank you. We just wanted to show where the former mayor of Slavyansk, Vyacheslav Ponomaryov, was voting, and the head of this polling station was Shalda Andriy, the teacher of IT, also the teacher who's still working, and he was actively organizing referendum on the 11th of May. He had an active position if the main person in the city came to this polling station. Those who were nowhere will become everything. No comment. Larina Valentina, the teacher of school number 12, from the member of the council from the Communist Party. On the 1st of May, they had the joint meeting with the Donetsk People's Republic, and the Communist Party of Ukraine showed that they are supporting them, and she's still the teacher.
Hello, we welcome our viewers and our Izborsk Club. The Izborsk Club appeared in Novorossiya, not in Donetsk, because it involves not only specialists from Donetsk, but from the entire territory of Novorossiya. The Izborsk Club was created on the 14th of June. Yes. So it is enough to say that this person is a postgraduate student of the history of Ukraine. Poroshenko does everything possible so that Novorossiya and the person of Donetsk and Luhansk, this is movement from away from Ukraine, not to Ukraine, but away from Ukraine. The federation does not satisfy. And of course, the reason in Donetsk and Luhansk regions was the neglection of the natural rights of those people who live there. For other regions of Ukraine, Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, Mykolaiv, the Kateles, may be disagreement. This is the senior lecturer of the chair of philosophy of the Donetsk National University. Here we see how he addresses through mass media. You can only imagine how many students. If Donbass, Crimea are the territories that navigate to Russia and give quite a lot of economy, so respectively the special situation of these regions and the realization of our interests will put in other relations, Central and Western Ukraine, when they don't have this Southeast, at the expense of which they want to realize their so-called pro-European choice. I think that even the separation of Donbass alone, if we cannot take away the entire Southeast, nevertheless, even Donetsk region is 25% of industrial production and export potential. Without Donbass, without Crimea, Ukraine becomes a potential donor that will require new loans, and the establishment of Novorossiya in the way of independent Donbass will help other territories of Southeast to navigate to us, because in the rest of Ukraine you shouldn't expect any economic development. This guy is the assistant professor of the politology chair of the Donetsk National University. He will very soon, I think, get the doctor of politology. I think that his the Donetsk People's Republic is as viable as Ukraine is in 1991. But in reality, this guy, Sergei Buntovsky, is the assistant professor of the Academy of Donetsk National Republic. He is one of the leaders of Russian Bloc Party, and we can find a lot of mentions of him in different mass media and a lot of essays on the topic of Novorossiya and the belonging of Ukrainian territory to the Russian Federation. We want again to emphasize the importance of lustration among education workers in the liberated districts of Donbass, and we think that this will help us to educate school children and students not in an adequate way, and we think that this step is vitally necessary for the system of educational establishments in Donbass. Thank you. As they say, it's better to see once than hear 100 times. Regrettably, I've seen these facts for almost 3 years, as I was the student of the history department of the Donetsk National University, and this saga started long ago in May, after the so-called referendum and the beating of pro-Ukrainian students on the 28th of April. The initiative group of students, which I was the member of, addressed People's Deputy Maria Matios, asking her to send a letter to Minister of Education about the pro-rector Marmazov. Since then, the visits to Marmazova to talk, to have some tears, she calls, with further threats about expelling from the university became constant. We have to dispel the myth about the educational establishments supporting Ukraine. We think that the support there is around 50%, but those 50% are a bit blank when such active figures are on the arena, and there's a whole number of university teachers who actively support terrorist organization and threaten the students, but all this takes place in the form of lectures and during personal communication. For instance, the words of Kyrylyuk to one of the students, "Why are you not in the cellar yet?" Young scientists whom I had to represent because I was head of the student society, scientific society, are mostly in favor of Ukraine, but scientific argument is lost in the face of aggression from the lecturers. We also must talk about the situation of transferring students from Donbass to other regions. There's no system as such. We have to say that every day, at least from history department, the 2 or 3 students are going away, and heads of chairs are resigning, and they are going to Kyiv. So lustration among education workers is first of all a necessity. Please, any questions? We think that there's at least a dozen other videos that guys brought here, and we think that they are real foolish. foolish teachers who are conducting anti-Ukrainian, anti-state, anti-national policy in universities of Donetsk. So if you want, we can share those videos. I have a question. Why this address of an MP is being launched only today? Why wasn't it done earlier? We're almost on the threshold of the new academic year, but a great number of teachers and lecturers are still there who can start their work again. Thank you for the question. The matter is more why the Minister of Education and the head of the committee of the Parliament, Hrinevich, have not created a special lustration commission so far. At the initiative of Andriy Pavlovskiy, we public activists could do this on liberated territories, go there, talk to people. But as far as Zubrev, for instance, is concerned, the head of the department in Slovyansk, we talked for 10 days about him, and several other teachers. 10 days passed, and the State Security Service or the other special services have done nothing. So we stimulate now the minister, and we are doing the work of the committee of the Verkhovna Rada, although we think that this should be done by the ministry, and these are open facts, and many people from Donetsk are in Kyiv and are ready to give testimony. So at the moment, the request is launched. Yes, we are sending it today, and we hope that when Kvit comes back from Warsaw, he will take this into work, and all those people, and there are students who want to testify, and when the letter of Mr. Kvit reaches a month of age, he will do something, but still we don't see any steps. You have also mentioned another deputy's request about Maria Matios. Thanks to Maria Matios, this was the initiative in May when this was not as disastrous. The next week, Mr. Kvit has issued the order to temporarily remove some people. However, at that moment, the Donetsk region was not under control of Ukrainian armed forces or authorities. So they are not in just one higher educational establishment, mostly in Donetsk National University. We don't have proof about other universities. And this evidence was given by the students. Yes, there's quite a lot of other surnames, but it would be non-correct without proof. We have disseminated this list among the journalists, and I think that Mr. Pavlovskiy will publish it on his Facebook page, and we hope for the reaction. As far as the Donetsk National University is concerned, it became an ideological grounds for this propaganda. Marmazova, Kornilov, and Tabachnik and Buzina in Svyatogirsk have held ideological schools about Novorossiya. You understand that the former minister was taking place there. So the Donetsk National University is a hotbed of nationalism in the region. You remember that there was an initiative to give the name of Vasil Stus to the university. We understand now why this didn't happen. We hope that when this all comes to the end, the Donetsk National University will get the name of Vasil Stus. Something like 35,000 students learned.
Немає запитання. Дуже дякую вам, що прийшли. Є запитання, Андрія Куликова, є запитання, прошу.
Андрій Куликов, Громадське радіо. Наскільки ви радилися з юристами, коли укладали цей список? Зокрема, мене цікавить такий пункт звинувачення, як відсутність почуття патріотизму.
Значить, з приводу депутатського звернення. Відповідно до Закону України про статус народного депутата, народний депутат України може звертатися до органів влади, викладати там свою позицію, викладати інформацію, не розкривати джерела інформації, це об'єктивно, тому що щодня контррозвідка Служби безпеки України на звільнених територіях затримує диверсійні групи, тому цим людям до сих пір може загрожувати небезпека. З приводу відчуття патріотизму, ви знаєте, це було і в попередньому нашому списку, який оприлюднився 10 днів тому особисто Андрієм Михайловичем. Я хочу сказати, що в цей список, ми тоді про це говорили, загалом, набагато більше, в ньому 42 прізвища. Але щодо людей, по яким ми маємо сумніви щодо їхньої участі активної в сепаратизмі, ми цих людей відкрито не оприлюднили, а закрито передали Службі безпеки.
Наскільки юридичним є термін «відсутність почуття патріотизму»?
Я вважаю,
щоб на підставі цього людей усувати від роботи. Відсутність почуття патріотизму.
Значить, в цьому списку, пане Андрій, в цьому списку виключно, дякую за запитання ще раз, в цьому списку виключно ті люди, які співпрацювали з Донецькою Народною Республікою. Ми вважаємо, що сьогодні в умовах війни і відкритої агресії з Росією, і Андрій Павловський це підписав, ми вважаємо, що це достатній доказ, тому що 1 вересня це все повториться.
Ви двічі не відповіли на запитання, дякую. А
Дякую.
тоді запитання стисло нам. Скажіть, будь ласка, що таке Новоросія?
Ну, давайте я краще передам колезі, який з ідеологами Новоросії всі ці роки вчився.
Які території охоплювали Новоросію?
Я краще передам колезі з Дону, який поряд з тими великими пропагандистами Новоросії вчився всі ці роки. Я думаю, що він краще це і фахово прокоментує.
Well, in reality, thank you for the question. Donetsk region, and this was more than once mentioned by Mrs. Marmazova. Entirely, she was never in the territory of Novorossiya. Only part of it was included into Novorossiya, and the eastern part was in Donetsk, in Don Cossack troops, and the western part was in Novorossiya general governors. But of course, historically, yes, there was a term Novorossiya, which included 3 governments, regions, but this is all in the past. Other questions? You named 16 surnames, but do you know at least approximate statistics about how many of them are in the entire region? We have worked in Slovyansk, Kramatorsk. We were talking about managers there. Our list includes 42 surnames. We have not published it entirely, but you see that there are people who protect our those Methodists who were running with separatists in Slovyansk. We transfer all the surnames to the security service, and they are checking them. If they are not confirmed, then there are no questions about them. But you see that this is a mass activity in eastern. Why this doesn't happen in Poltava and Ternopil regions? This happens in Donetsk and Luhansk. We have to carry out serious lustrations there, not only among education workers. And Andriy Pavlovskiy says that the feeling of patriotism is, or the lack of the feeling of patriotism is a rather weighty moment in the educational center of Slovyansk. they have to reshuffle everybody there because everything started from there. Are there any results of the examination of the security service? Can you name them? Arseniy Pushkarenko and a public activist, Alexei Stanchevsky, also public activist, and Karen Nikiforov, the former student of the Donetsk National University, who is now studying at the Shevchenko University in Kyiv. So, look, the security service, 10 days passed. Andriy Pavlovskiy is working with them now. I think that in his Facebook he will soon, we will soon publish the list of those. I think, I do hope that Andriy Pavlovskiy will find the time in his busy schedule to come here personally and comment on his address. Thank you.